Hello, mate.
Hello, bud. How are you?
I'm good. How are you feeling about your house right now? Because for the yeah, you're just about to move, literally in like 2 days, aren't you?
It's a shit show. I've literally come to the realization that I don't know where half my stuff is.
What do you mean you don't know where it is?
It's in a box somewhere.
As in, what stuff are we talking about though? Like,
A phone charger.
oh, that's pretty important.
Yep. So, nothing too big.
Oh, fuck. Good start.
Exactly. So that's what's going on at the moment. And of course, just trying to do like all the cleanups and all that sort of things to minimize it when we actually move out.
Mm,
So whilst doing that, having a dog in between your feet, trying to sniff everything around and managing time, it's getting a bit too much.
exactly, mate. Well, yeah, thank you so much for like doing this, because otherwise
No
we'd just be
worries.
screwed. Yeah.
No worries.
So the main topic, it's basically like a football roundup what we're doing. So we're recording this. This is going to come out on the Monday, but we're recording this on like the Wednesday or the Thursday beforehand. So we obviously don't know the results from this weekend. But the main topic is Man City and them, because they were initially banned from European football for 2 years for breaching financial fair play, and now they've been reinstated into European competitions after they were found supposedly to have not breached financial fair play anymore, which I would be very, very surprised if they hadn't, when you consider how much money they spend year on year on year on bringing in new players.
Absolutely. It's really disgraceful because they initially found them guilty. So they were like, oh, okay, well, that's 2 years ban. You can't play in the European competitions anymore. That's it. You can go away. And then Man City went, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. What are you on about? And then FIFA went, okay. No, not FIFA, sorry, UEFA went, yeah, we think you did. Went to Court of Arbitration of Sport. And then they were like, oh, well, they might have been, they might not have been. And UEFA just turned around and went, okay, well, you're not guilty. You can just pay 10 million euros. So it's like, well, why are they paying 10 million euros if they're not guilty? Which one is it? Are they guilty or are they not?
Yeah, why are they paying 10 million euros if they're not guilty? Surely they wouldn't have to do anything. They'd just be free to go and compete. That
It,
doesn't make any sense.
it honestly, the financial fair play, which is why Man City have been banned in the first place, because they were spending too much money. I don't know into detail the ins and outs of the financial fair play, but I'm pretty sure in very vague terms, you can't spend more than what you return in. That includes all sponsorships and all that sort of malarkey, which kind of levels the books a little bit. So in theory, the smaller clubs can grow and essentially not cheat their way through like Man City have by
So
just spending on everything.
it allows them to be more competitive, because in theory, everyone's roughly like able to spend roughly the same amount, because obviously, you can't spend at a loss and sign players at a loss. And that would also then put those same clubs, if they do bring in players at a loss, then it would put them in real trouble of going under if, say, a global pandemic hits and you don't have any income.
Yeah, it's just incredible because, of course, you've got this financial fair play that's come in. Was it 10 years ago or so? I think it was 2009 or whatever, 2010, and that was on paper the rules of right. You can't spend more than what you're bringing in, and this is the purest corruption form from these stupid organizations, right? And I'm all for all these big organizations looking after them, but how these organizations are actually taking the piss now. You're literally bribing more money with more money.
Mm.
It's incredible. It's stopping the smaller teams from growing, where it, they're not bringing in enough money, but in theory that makes it a level playing field, when it's an absolute fucking shithousery with the likes of Atlanta, who are doing incredibly well this year in the league and Champions League and whatnot, whether they're involved in. But then you've got the Man City, who are just fucking ploughing money into left, right and centre and can't even beat Liverpool.
And when you consider Liverpool's net spend in the previous years, they've absolutely done Man City in. They've made them look like complete mugs.
Yeah, yeah. Liverpool, what Klopp has built there in the last 5 years is incredible. And I'm not a Liverpool fan, so don't get me wrong. I do not like Liverpool, but credit has got to be given where it's due. Credit is not going to be given when you buy trophies left, right, and centre, and you can't even win the flipping Champions League while spending so much. That's what I find even more insane.
Exactly right. But the thing that I've found out looking into this, right? So they can't spend more than they earn in a year. Man City's kit deal, this is just their kit deal, is worth £650 million over a 10-year period. So that's £65 million a year. And then you've got to add on top the money that they get from the Premier League. And then you've probably got some kind of other sponsorship deals as well. And
Yeah,
even with
with
all this cash that they have going in, they still overspent. Still.
With how football's run nowadays, you haven't got just one sponsor on your shirt. You've got a sleeve sponsor now. You've got a training shirt sponsor. You've got all these things where it adds up to about 20 or so, how they call affiliates, not sponsors nowadays, apparently. So you've got these affiliations where, give or take, of course, the bottom ones are not going to be paying you 65 million a year. They're going to be paying you more like a million, 2 or 3 a year, maybe. So on average, if you say you've got 10 million with all of the, the top elite clubs that are the Man Cities or the Chelseas or the Man Uniteds, where they've got big commercial standing within football, they'll probably, we can estimate it at 10 million or so for the whole shebang, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah.
10 million for 20 athletes, that would be 200 million. Give or take, there's going to be bigger and smaller numbers, of course, but that's just from sponsorships from the year. Those numbers can very easily buy you a shitload of players.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not enough.
No, clearly not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this position in the first place. And earlier on, I was looking up the total value of like each different squad, right? And we're gonna talk about this a bit later. But Atalanta, who's the team that's second in Serie A at the moment, their squad value is 250 million, supposedly euros. By the way, 250 million euros, and they're doing very well in Serie A. They've scored the second most goals amongst any team in Europe right now. They're doing incredibly well when you consider they don't seem to have any like blockbuster stars. And then below them is Man City. Their squad value was 930 million euros. What?
Yeah, you had Pep give his interview, didn't he? Where we wanted to sign Sanchez and we couldn't afford him. We wanted to sign Maguire, we couldn't afford him. Well, yes, you couldn't afford him because you bought another 5 or 6 players that year worth about 30, 40, 50 million. When the other teams, like Man United, spread it out across 2 years, as I believe, and that was their superstar signing for those years. That was the only signing that they had, and I'm not backing Man United in any form of way saying that their spending is justifiable. All I'm saying is that Man City and how they're dealing with all of this is an absolute disgrace because they're celebrating it like a top team would celebrate winning a Champions League.
I saw a brilliant meme that was like each fan will have like the moment that they think back to, right? For me as a West Ham fan, I know it doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people, but the day that West Ham got promoted back into the Premier League, that's a day that I will always remember. I'm sure you, being a Chelsea fan, that night in Munich, that'll be one for you. For Liverpool fans, it'll probably be that night in Istanbul. Man United will probably be 99 treble or whatever. You get the idea. For Man City fans, it will be the day that financial fair play rules were just flouted.
That just sums it up, though. They're literally celebrating it like they have won it.
Exactly, like they've won the league. I'm surprised they don't go and trash the city centre like the Scousers did.
Yeah, I mean, they might have some sort of self-respect about them. That's probably why.
Exactly, but like, what I'm still confused about is why they were found not guilty of breaking financial fair play rules, but then they had to pay £10 million. Who's that going to? Why do they need to pay it if they weren't guilty in the first place? I know you've already touched on this, but who's the money going to? Why do they need it?
Well, when FIFA is the umbrella company or sorry, not company, not allowed to say that.
Organisation.
Organization, yeah, that have, again, as we've touched before, on trillions in their reserves, is their essentially parent organization. I mean, I'm not going to have much hopes for UEFA. It's quite clear where that money's going to, and it's only going to get worse. That culture within, like we've talked about before, in that corruption within FIFA, it stems down to UEFA.
Yeah.
And that will stem down to some football organisations like Jack Walker. Where was he from? Trinidad and Tobago, was it something like that?
It was, yeah.
God forbid, to know what goes on in those organisations, in the Football Association of Trinidad and Tobago. I know that there is some football associations that kind of try and stand up towards it, but it's still not enough when it's a handful of them just actually trying to do the right thing. But what's the right thing nowadays? You can't even say.
I mean, it's a losing battle at this point when you're the one person who's trying to fight back against all this corruption, and when you consider the head of FIFA, the ex-head of FIFA, Sepp Blatter, was insanely corrupt. You've now got the guy who runs FIFA at the moment. I can't remember his name for the life of me. He doesn't seem to be much better than Blatter in terms of the fact that there's nobody that's trying to stand against him, in the elections that they have. They just have, it's just a procession for him to be re-elected again and again. And that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense if you're looking at it from a governance perspective. You would want someone to be challenging them and saying, well, why aren't you doing this and this way? It seems to be like a dictatorship of sorts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but it's the culture within that organisation, isn't it? That they have been doing things their way for over many years, and that's not going to be changed. And when you go into an organisation like that, it's very difficult to walk away from it and say, do you know what, I can change things. You can't, because you are against most people who want the same thing to be saying a similar way. Changing something like that is much more difficult than changing anything else, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Looking at my notes, the next thing I had down was the FIFA World Cup in 22, because this again goes back to the whole corruption thing. If you don't know, Qatar, the 22 World Cup will be hosted in Qatar, which is an Arab state and is insanely hot in the summer. So they looked at it.
Can I just touch on when you said, if you don't know?
Yeah.
If you don't know, get out of your bubble and then find out. Sorry, you continue.
It's fine. Yeah, get out your bubble and then look into this, because it was shown that I believe, I don't know what the evidence was, but there was evidence that Qatari officials bribed certain people within FIFA to host the World Cup in Qatar. And so it's an Arab state. It's incredibly hot in the summer, upwards of 40 odd degrees. Impossible to play football there in the summer. So they looked at it and they said, okay, we'll move it to the winter then. So now the 2022 World Cup will be between November 21st and December the 18th, which I just think is mental. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before. And again, it's all because of this FIFA corruption.
It's really sad thinking about it, because again, we've touched on it, haven't we, in that episode that we recorded about the corruption within FIFA. And England were in the running to host the 2022 World Cup. And of course, England has a much more widespread infrastructure for stadiums, for transport, for just any sort of hosting capabilities that are marked on being able to be a host or being chosen to be a host by the right board of members, and not by the board of members who accept cash behind everyone's backs and be like, oh no, Qatar deserved it more. that's not the case. There's been money involved in there somewhere. And as we've touched on it, let alone the heat and all that, there's been a lot of human lives lost building all these stadiums because, of course, there's minimal health and safety to it.
Their health and safety laws are very, very lax over there.
Yeah, and quite a lot of the sheikhs out there, they treat other people like slaves that, are not at their level. So it's not really anything to them, but putting on a show for the rest of the world, for everyone to think, oh, Qatar can actually hold a good World Cup. And then everyone think, oh, yeah, we must go and visit. But looking beyond 2022, let's look at Christmas 2022. Stadiums are going to be empty. Are they going to be used? What, 30, 40, 50,000 capacity stadiums for which football teams? I'm not sure, because I don't know of any football teams in Qatar, and I'm sure most of the viewers or listeners won't know either. I'm sure they won't be able to fill them out. I know FIFA has this saying where they want to be leaving a legacy in these places, but it can only go so far when it's going to be 40 odd degrees in the winter outside, and that's in the shade, let alone in the sun. Dread to think what it's going to be like.
Well, you probably won't be able to leave your house in the summer. You'll probably have to just isolate, basically, or they'll create these ventilated tunnels between houses or whatever. Otherwise, no one's going to be able to exist, let alone play sports in that environment. But yeah, it's the Qatari Football League is going to be very, very well supplied after 22, considering the fact that no one, I don't know any you hear footballers just before they retire going over to the US, for example, to get a shit ton of money just before they retire. I think I heard of one player who went to the Middle East to play, and I can't even remember their name. It was some Barcelona player. It might have been Xavi. Yeah, he went over there, but no one else has gone over.
Well, you've had a few players, but I think quite a lot of them actually go to Saudi Arabia because they've got a half-established league, and of course, there's quite a lot of money in Saudi Arabia.
Who plays in Saudi Arabia?
I think it was Asmo Gyan, but I don't even know if that was in Qatar or not. I feel like it was in Saudi Arabia.
Right.
Anyway, point being, it's not a very popular place to go to. I mean, if footballers want to retire, they would became a recent thing, and it dropped off, of course, with the Chinese taxes, where they would go to China and play, earning a shit ton of money, more than they would in the US. But if you want to be playing at half decent level, you would go to Turkey because, weather there's all right. You could get paid all right as well. But yeah, the Middle East is a bit of a weird one, I know, for a lot of players. And when they've come out and said, yeah, I don't want to go there, and they never really give out reasons. So I do wonder what those reasons are for footballers that doesn't incentivize them to go and double the amount that they would here without paying tax as well.
Yeah, it would be really interesting to see what their reasoning was, like behind closed doors when they weren't worried about what people would say.
Yeah.
Maybe it would be how their family would be treated. Maybe. Yeah, there's so many different things that could impact their decision.
Exactly. I know John Terry, when his contract expired with Chelsea, I think Spartak Moscow or Lokomotiv Moscow, a Moscow team offered him a contract, and he was going to accept it, but he rejected it last minute. He said, actually, looking at it, I don't want to live in Moscow. I'd rather live in Surrey, wherever he lives, and travel up to Birmingham to go to Aston Villa. So
was that what he did?
Well, yeah, he still lives in the same place. He just travels up. I don't know if you follow him on Instagram. He puts stories up on him like traveling up the M42, listening to like Talk Sport and stuff. It's not safe.
No, he shouldn't be on his phone in the first place. But his mental, the only person I can think of that did that was Harry Redknapp, because he lived in Bournemouth pretty much the whole time whilst managing. He did it whilst managing Portsmouth, and I think he did it while managing Spurs as well, which I think is pretty bold. But it just doesn't make sense because you're just going to spend most of your life on the road anyway.
It depends, because I feel like with living in Bournemouth and travelling up to Spurs, that's a journey and a half. You've got the M25 to kill there, and the M3, which is, two not great
Yeah, it's not a
commutable
great place to
motorways.
drive.
No, whereas the M42, you can kind of just put your foot down. And for people who are listening from the UK, that's the British answer back to the German autobahn, even though it's not official.
Yeah. It's just you put your foot down and you go for it. But yeah. So going on to the next thing was the thing I wrote that I spoke about earlier was Atalanta. So there was a chart that was brought out, and it was the most goals scored by a team amongst it's the top 5 leagues in Europe. So you got the British league, the English league, Spanish, French, German, and Italian. And basically, the team that scored the most goals was Bayern Munich, which makes perfect sense because they just dominate the Bundesliga. But
Yeah.
second, you would presume it would be Juventus or Man City, but it was actually Atalanta. And
Or
third,
PSG.
yeah, PSG is another one as well. And then you've got Man City just beneath them. And I spoke about the squad values earlier, but I'll repeat that again. So Bayern Munich, the team in first, have a total combined squad value of 900 million euros. And then below them, you've got Atalanta. Their combined value was 230 million, which is such a significant drop off. And then you go down to Man City again, which is coming close to €1 billion in euros in terms of the squad valuation. Now you look at that and you think, wow, Atalanta must be mental, right? They must be pushing Juve. No, they're second to Juve and they're 6 points behind Juventus, who are leading Serie A, which is the Italian football league. And you look at that and you think, okay, well, why is that? Basically, they got all their goals from blowouts. There were loads of teams that they just beat 7-0, 5-0, 4-1, and credit to them, they're still second place. But I can't think of a single Atalanta star. Like you don't have someone like Higuain or Morata or whoever you can think of leading these teams. So it's pretty impressive what they've managed to do.
Before I go on to my point, Morata and Higuain are not stars of a football team, as a Chelsea fan.
Well, in Italy, they seem to do quite well, or at least Higuain does.
Well, they've got Ronaldo, they've got Dybala, they've got Lukaku now, who's doing really well. But I guess for Man United fans, it's the same. Anyway, I see where you're coming from with the squad values. However, I have one comment to make on that. It is very interesting that PSG are not there. With Man City, you can argue with the Premier League being a more competitive league, so the squad values would be a little bit more increased than there would be in the Serie A, because the Serie A might not be as a competitive league. Which, of course, I'm not saying the competitiveness of both leagues is less or more or anything. I'm just saying that's something to figure out there and try and work out what is a more competitive league. So with Man City being 4 times more expensive on a squad value than Atlanta,
coming up to it, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, you can't even justify that, because you've got the likes of PSG, like you said, and Juventus, and even Liverpool. When you think about it, they're 8th, aren't they? They're in the top 10, just about.
So this is the top 10. I've obviously given you the top 3. 4th is Borussia Dortmund, and then you've got RB Leipzig, and then you've got Barcelona, Liverpool, PSG, Inter Milan, and Lazio. So Liverpool are 7th.
Right. And yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And it says here that the squad value of Liverpool is like 900 million. But when you consider their spend in the transfer market, they've done quite well to kind of build up these players who they were able to get relatively cheap, and then or who were already at the club, and to be able to turn it around, which just emphasizes how good a job Jurgen Klopp did.
Yeah, or well, it's utilising Barcelona's stupid scouting system that they thought Coutinho would be good for 150 million.
Yeah, just use the Coutinho money and then, stick within financial fair play. You see, Man City, you sell off one of your stars and you get on with it. You don't just hoard them.
I don't think Man City fans right now know what you're talking about. They're just like, what? What does that mean?
Selling people? No, we keep them forever.
But yeah, I think credit has got to be given to Atalanta. Juventus have been dominating for a good 9 years now, I think, or so.
I
And
wouldn't say 9 years, but it's been a long time that they've just been sweeping it.
I genuinely think it's been 9 years. I think
Okay.
Conte started off there in 2011, and he might not have done very well in his first year, but they've definitely been in a role for 7-8 years now.
Okay.
So anyway, I think credit's got to be given to them because, like you said, they haven't got the financial power. They've literally bought off uprising and promising players that their attack has been killing it. And again, they've been utilising other teams' stupid recruitment systems or scouting systems or whatnot, like Chelsea, sold off Pasalic, or however you pronounce his name, bloke who's 22, 23, for 12.5 million when he's scored like 25 goals this season or last season, combination of the two. You think about it and you think, oh, yeah, we've got a few midfielders, but they're not performing as well as, a Premier League winning side would have a midfielder pushing for goals and assists. We're just going to sell this one for like 12 million. It's fine. He's scoring goals left, right and centre and assisting them. Yeah. Just
12 million. When you consider how much Premier League clubs are spending, that's a piss take.
I don't know if it's the Chelsea board's way of keeping good relations with other clubs, almost like sweetening their deals, because it's been done so many times now where players have been sold off for so cheap, and I'm sure Chelsea fans would know I'm not going to go too into it. But you think, 5 million, 6 million for a player who's got so much potential, and then 2, 3, 4 years later, that player wasn't worth it anyway. So they did well to get 5, 6, 7, 8 million for them. But then there has been players like De Bruyne, like Salah, like Lukaku, where Chelsea have got it completely wrong. And everyone slates the senior management of Chelsea for getting that wrong. But had they stayed at Chelsea, they might not have turned out to be the same players. So you never know with things like that. And I guess that's where I don't know the senior management of these clubs and what their strategies are, but I guess you've got to be staying in good relations to some sort of extent when you want to be buying players back. And Chelsea are a buying club, so maybe that's a strategy.
I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to buy them just before they hit their peak years, sort of in their mid to late 20s, and then they hope that their value will just skyrocket, and then either they'll be able to make the most of them, like on the pitch, and win a lot, or they might have a manager come in who decides that they don't want them anymore, but they're still performing really well, and so they can sell them off at a profit. I guess that's the strategy that Chelsea are taking.
Yeah, I mean, they've taken a very different turn after this transfer ban, haven't they, with what they're doing, which is actually decent, and hopefully only good comes out of it. So we'll see. But with teams like Atalanta, where they haven't had a renowned youth team and almost having to play with pennies to buy players, I think that's incredible. That's like seeing Sheffield United, for example. I know that their owners are quite rich, and I know Wolves' owners are quite rich as well, but so far from what we've seen, they've stayed within the FFP, which, funnily enough, I think some teams haven't.
Yeah, I can't think who. Man City.
You got Corona by any chance?
Yeah, I'm actually self-isolating now. It's a real shame.
For all the listeners, James is joking, by the way.
This is very obvious sarcasm. So what do you think of Chelsea's end to the season now? Because who are you playing next? Do you know?
We've got Man United at the weekend in the FA Cup semi-final.
Right.
And then we've got Liverpool midweek.
Nice one.
And then we've got Wolves at the end of in a week and a half's time.
Well, there's a good chance you could get something against Liverpool, because obviously Liverpool, it's been confirmed that they won it now. And who did they play? Did they play Man City and lose by a staggering amount?
4-0, I think they lost. But I'm pretty sure they turned up hungover and they had beers in the change rooms before kickoff.
I heard that as well, yeah.
So they they didn't take it seriously whatsoever. But we're recording it as they're playing against Arsenal. And at half time, when I checked, it was 2-1. And of course, when you're going to be listening to it, it's going to be obvious what the score is. So I don't know. I'm hoping we get 9 points. Sorry, not 9 points. We get 6 points and get into the FA Cup final. But being a Chelsea fan at the moment and having all these youngsters, it's just being like an Arsenal fan, I think. I wouldn't know, but I feel like that's the closest that we're getting right now.
Well, yeah, at least you've got Champions League spot.
Not yet. It's not confirmed. Well,
true.
I see what you're saying, yeah, but it's not yet confirmed. What's the score? Are you checking it?
I am. Liverpool are losing 2-1 to Arsenal still.
Okay. What minute is it?
It's 74 minutes as we're recording this right now. Yeah. So
what do you think about West Ham's ending of the season?
I've got them written down actually. So we're level with points on Watford.
Shall I put the kettle
on? I mean, why not, mate? I accidentally pressed the wrong button. It started playing music. I was like, shit, no. But yeah, West Ham, we're level on points with Watford at the moment. So there's the bottom three, they get relegated. And then you've got Watford, and then you've got West Ham. So we're fifth from bottom. And the bottom three go down. And we're level on points with Watford, the team below, on 34 points. And then there's a little bit of a gap. I think it's 3 points to the next closest, which is Bournemouth, and then Aston Villa. So our next game, funnily enough, is against Watford on Friday evening. And so you're obviously listening to this on the Monday, so you'll know the result by then. But that's a massive, massive deal. If we can win that game, we should be okay. Should be. But then after that, we've got to go play Man United away. I'm expecting to lose that. They've been.
Personally, I would rather you lose against Watford and then be shit scared and play really well against Man United and beat Man United.
Oh, because it affects you more.
Yeah.
I mean, United have just been doing bits with what's his name, Bruno Fernandes.
Okay, they've been doing bits against what? A relegation battling team of Aston Villa, Bournemouth, and who was it? Who did you say?
People in the bottom, basically.
Yeah. I mean, people saying, oh, Solskjaer's so much better and Lampard's a clown. Well, first of all, Lampard didn't lose his best player and Lampard didn't spend like 200 million over the last year and a half that he's been manager. So fuck you to Man United fans. Lampard's better.
I mean, he's definitely done really well so far, and it's going to be crazy to see because is the transfer ban lifted this summer?
27th of July, I think the Premier League are allowing. Well, 26th is the last day of the season, so 27th is when it's the official end of season. So
and that's when transfers can happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be interesting to see what they go for. I presume you would need a striker.
We've got Werner.
Oh yeah, you've got him coming. Jesus Christ, you've got him coming in, and then it'll be interesting. Yeah, like West Ham, we've been needing a striker for like 10 years.
If you want to buy back Schwei, we'll sell for about 50 million on the cheap.
50 million on the cheap, yeah, right.
Buy quick. Some players though, they're really decent players. I.e., in the German league when he went out to play in Dortmund, where the defences of the lower league teams or half the league or however was 18 teams in the German league, probably 14 of them. 13 of them, and not great. When you've got a striker who, in my opinion, doesn't obey his manager's orders, he'll go and score. Whereas at a team like Chelsea, where he had Conte, Sarri, now Lampard, all three not really having any faith in him, something's not going right with him.
Mm.
And with 3 different managers, it's not a fluke to be like Mourinho selling Salah, Lukaku, and De Bruyne.
Exactly. Yeah, you would presume that there is a consistent attitude issue.
Yeah,
Yeah, man. It sucks
and
because go on.
I think that's the difficulty that recruitment teams across any sort of elite team have, where they see these performances of a player play really well at a lower league team, and they go, "Oh well, yeah, he's going to fit our style of play and what we're trying to achieve in the next few years really well." Comes in, gets the big money, and he's a Gareth Bale basically, where he's like, "I don't really care. I don't mind sitting on the bench for however much money," and
Mm.
that's where quite a lot of teams, where like Liverpool, for example, where they bought Robertson for something like 8 million from Hull City, and when he joined, everyone's like, "What the hell are they doing? They're just continuing with their crappy recruitment." But they actually managed to identify someone with a good attitude to just be able to just hammer away and continue going on with it. Whether he wasn't and he still isn't the best technically, but he's an engine on the flank, and that's what they spotted, the right traits in the right position, rather than having someone who's really good.
But with a temperamental attitude.
I mean, yeah, that's besides the point. But what I'm saying is, with him, if we're going with him specifically, he's done really well to get to the level that he is because he's so good, isn't he?
Mm.
He might not have the best attitude at all times, but his work ethic is get it over and done with.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Not in a bad way, get it over and done with.
Yeah. You actually want, as in, he wants to get the job done well rather than
Yeah.
half-assed effort, basically.
And I think Mourinho was saying that with Azpilicueta, where I think his legs are going, he's getting slow. And it was the same with Ivanovic for a Chelsea fan. Chelsea fans will know what I'm talking about. He gives 110%, but he's just not the best player. And Mourinho was saying that I can have 11 Azpilicuetas on the field as long as they continue running like him and giving 110%, because that's what managers want. And I feel like with the likes of Pogba, it's a lot more difficult to manage when they've got that problem of going on Instagram and then flying out to LA in the middle of the season when you've got a game in a week and you allow him to have one day off. He comes back jet lagged and you're like, well, what the hell? Have some responsibility. So, yeah, I think that's the fun world of recruitment and scouting systems at football clubs.
Yeah, it really is, man. I feel like that's a good point on which to end. So thanks very much if you got to this point, and we'll see you again next time.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.